What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Powered by Primus, and in today's video I'm going to be showing off my orange tank deck. Now this is something that I've been tweaking with for quite a while, but this is something I knew I wanted to build ever since I saw new Lord Megatron with the Siege 2 spoilers. Now, spoiler, he's really awesome. I do absolutely love this character. I'm trying so hard to find out something really good for him. This is a really comfortable deck for him, and you really get to see how well his ability shines, and honestly both modes on this. Now I'm also able to bring in some other really cool characters, one that I haven't been able to play with in a really long time, and then another Wave 4 character, so it's really awesome stuff. The deck is super sweet, it is super solid, and I have played it before on stream, a different version. I think there was like a 12 card difference, but if you did tune in to one of our streams, I believe it was last week or something like that, you guys did get to see me play the deck quite a bit, and I did get some really cool piece through Tyranny turns off. However, the deck has changed since then. I'm going to be showing you guys more gameplay of this deck, going up against some really cool matchups, because like, again, I want to show you guys this deck because it is so much fun to play. Plus, it's been taking me just a little longer to get to some of these deck profile videos, just because I've been trying to refine a lot of these decks to make sure that they're good enough to be showing you guys. So let's get into today's build. Now, the first character we're obviously going to talk about here is going to be Lord Megatron. Now, this guy is a monster. He is a powerhouse. I love him. First off, on this mode, coming in with 4 attack, 17 health, and 2 armor, he's really well statted. Now, the reason why he only has 4 attack is because of his ability. It would be really busted if he had like 6 or 7 attack. However, we are going to be pushing that number to the extreme with this deck. But he does have that 4 attack. The 17 health is really where he honestly shines the most, is that finally there is a Megatron that has enough health to truly be able to survive long enough to get the abilities to start going off. Now, most situations, like with General Megatron, who is another great Megatron, he just takes a little bit longer for a setup, so his health pool just doesn't really get to match that time that you have to spend into it, where this Megatron finally has a really good health pool. And then the whole fantastic part about this is it does say, when your opponent reshuffles their deck, they choose one of their characters and do damage to it equal to this character's attack total. Now, it does also take into effect if there's any modifier. So let's say we have a grenade launcher on us, well then it becomes 8 damage versus the 4 damage. Now also, there are some really weird situations where this character's ability can be kind of weird, and then there's some situations where this character is like really awesome. So it does have some interesting things we will be talking about at the end of the video with some sequencing and some other things like that about his ability, because like I said, sometimes it can be weird, so you do need to make sure that you do fully understand the ability and make sure you are taking full advantage of it. Now, when we flip over to this mode, which is again really awesome stuff. Now, I did not say on the other side, he is a leader in range in both modes, which is relevant. A tank in this mode, which is extremely relevant. He has 6 attack, which is a massive attack pool, which is really cool. And then he does go up to 3 armor, which is really awesome, because finally we get something that's got some super solid armor, and then we're actually going to be breaking this deck as far as with a bunch of other armor as well to make sure this character's got a massive amount of armor. And then it does say, when you flip to this mode, your opponent scraps a number of cards from the top of their deck equal to this character's total armor. Now, it goes the same way. Let's say we have a composite armor, which, spoiler alert, we do have composite armors in the list. Then we will have 6 armor, and your opponent will have to mill, which is a reference in card games where they take the top card of their deck and put it into their scrap pile, equal to his armor, which in that situation would be 6. Now, this is really relevant because there are a lot of cards that you really want to honestly make your opponent scrap so they don't get access to them. The other really cool part about this is that green pips cannot be picked up. There are so many decks that are running a lot of 1-ofs for green pips, or maybe 2 of a card for a green pip because they kind of don't want to see it, but they'll eventually get to it. Well, sometimes you'll get to mill some of those green pips and your opponent doesn't get access to them. Or maybe let's say your opponent is trying to stack the top of their deck for either way, then you can try to make sure that those cards are milling, but also we're really trying to use this ability to make our opponent go through their deck faster so we can set up for this mode and make our opponent do a bunch of damage to one of their own characters by just shuffling their deck. It is a really cool mechanic, and it's something that I really love. We did get to see something similar, or there's a few other characters, I guess, that have that reshuffle mechanic that get things. We do have Nemesis Prime, who was always a really big character for trying to get a card under him so you can keep getting those +3s, but it just took a little bit of a longer way to do it because there wasn't support for him, and he didn't have support built into the card. Where this character himself makes your opponent mill, and then you get a profit off of them having to reshuffle their deck. So this is really, really cool that it's all built in. You don't really have to expend too many resources into it. We do have some cards that are going to help us get there, but our opponent will naturally always at least reshuffle once in a game. And then if they're doing, some type of draw deck and they're trying to go through their deck a bunch, or they're, on a really heavy bold or a really heavy tough, maybe we can get them to go through their deck twice in a game, and then we're starting to really, really profit off of this character. He's definitely the main focus point of the deck, and he is really, really good. The next character coming in here, and is a really interesting one, is going to be Captain Impactor. Now, I messed a lot with the 7-star slot because Demolisher here is 6, and I knew these were guaranteed in the list, so I messed around a lot with the 7 stars in this section of the deck, and I really couldn't find anything that I super liked. I do want this deck to be really aggressive and really heavy orange, which is kind of interesting talking about all the armors, but we'll get into that. But I knew that I really wanted it to be that aggressive deck. I did try Nightbird, however, she just goes down really, really fast because we're not on blue, so I ended up taking her out. Like I said, tried a few other characters to see if I did like anything, but I ultimately just settled on Captain Impactor. Now, the first thing, he is a leader and a range. Now, the leader is, again, relevant, which is really cool. We'll get into that. And then the range, obviously, is really nice. All of our characters are going to be ranged, and then we do get to spice things up a little bit with the melee side on this. But all of our characters are going to be ranged. He does come in here with 4 attack, 12 health, and 1 armor. Pretty good stats across the board. Not fantastic, but definitely still good. But he does have access to Bold 1, which again really gets to help us push with that, us trying to be aggressive, which is really, really nice. Now, when we flip over to this mode, he is a tank. Again, is relevant. We're going to be showing off some cards that definitely do go towards tanks in this list. He does go down to 3 attack, but we're flipping him into this mode when he's not attacking, so that 3 and 4 just isn't relevant. And then it does say when you flip to this mode, each of your characters gets Bolt 1 until end of turn, which is really nice because usually the turn that we're flipping him to this mode, we're getting him with Megatron, so giving him the bold is actually way more relevant. And it does allow us to finally do something with Impactor when he's really not active. So one thing that can be kind of weird with some characters is, let's say, you're kind of tapped down in this situation, you really don't have anything you can do with the character, and sometimes a flip is really awkward, or the character just no longer does anything. Their job is to just kind of sit there and possibly survive till next turn. Well, this does allow him to still kind of get into it, allows us to flip, get some benefit from him, and then still to be able to continue our turn like normal. So that's really, really nice stuff. And then our last character coming in here is going to be Demolisher. Now, like I said, Demolisher has always been one of my favorite tanks. He's been a really awesome character. I've always wanted to run him in a heavy orange list for quite a long time, but really haven't been able to find the right space for him. There was a list that I believe Wes was running for a while that did have Nemesis Prime and was just designed on running through your deck as fast as possible because he is really good at flipping a million cards. So, in this mode, we do have 0 attack, 7 health, and 4 armor. Now, the 4 armor is actually quite a bit of armor, especially if we do happen to get a composite armor onto this character. Now he has 7 armor, which is really, really high. Even if your opponent is swinging with a good swing of maybe 9 or 10, then they're still only getting in for 3 points of damage, which does really benefit Demolisher because he does have a really low health pool. So it is really nice for helping him stick around and also being able to, no pun intended, tank quite a bit, which is really nice. Now he also says when this is attacking, you get to flip extra battle cards equal to his armor. So we get to flip 2 for our initial attack. We get to flip 4 for his armor, so now we're already flipping 6 cards. And then if you flip a white, now we're flipping 8 cards. And then if we have the composite armor, we're flipping 3 more. So we're flipping a total of 11 cards on attack. That is a fourth of our deck with not having any cards in our hand or whatever are in play. That is a fourth of our deck in one swing. So this guy can get in for massive amounts of damage. I'm going to be showing you guys a scenario, I think at the end of the video, where I did manage to attack with this character for like 23 or something like that, and it was by playing 1 upgrade on a previous turn on a different character, and then it was playing 1 upgrade and 1 action onto this character, and was managed to swing with a base of 0 into like 23 damage. It was absolutely massive, and it's really a powerhouse that can just come out of absolutely nowhere, and to be able to swing for that kind of damage on a 6-star character for putting such low resources into it is really, really awesome. So this character is actually a massive, massive threat in the list, which does get to then take focus off off of our Lord Megatron, which makes the game go a little bit longer and allows us to set up. So this deck has a lot of really awesome synergy built into it. Now we flip over to this mode, we go down to 3 attack and 3 armor. It is kind of weird that he has more armor in bot mode than he does in tank mode, but he will spend most of his time in bot mode, so it actually does benefit us. It says when you flip over to this mode, you get to draw a card for each other tank you do have. So, however, if this was our team and we happen to flip into this mode, you get to draw 2 cards for other tanks. He does not count himself when it comes to the draw step. It's really, really nice stuff being able to help us draw 2 additional cards because we are so aggressive. We're really kind of going through our hand pretty fast, or maybe we just need that 1 extra card we're digging for. So it is really nice to be able to revert back to this if we absolutely need to, and to be able to draw those additional cards. Now the first card coming in here is going to be this composite armor. Now we've talked about it a little bit already, and I wanted to just make sure we started with this card because there is so much, and this card is the reason behind the entire deck, and this card is just really the reason why I'm absolutely loving this deck in general. Now it is an orange and a black pip card. Now I believe I have a total of 15 black pips in the deck, and it is because I can finally put some Pierce in there just to make sure that in some of those scenarios, our characters who are getting in for a little bit less damage can make sure that they're getting in for that exact damage, because we do want to make sure that we are maximizing damage, not just throwing it at our opponent each turn for a bunch, but making sure that some of it sticks is really, really important. It is an upgrade armor. It does say to put on tanks only. So one thing you cannot do is you cannot have Megatron out here, go I'm going to play a composite armor and then flip to make you mill 6, because you cannot put it on him because he is not a tank. Now when he's in this mode, you're more than welcome to put it on him. So I'm going to be showing you guys how we are going to sneak this into play and still get that mill 6 later on. And now it says, when the upgraded character defends, you scrap this card after battle, so it acts a lot like the defensive grenade launcher. Grenade launcher, you get to attack, but then you have to scrap it just to make sure that you don't have any weird untapped shenanigans and get to benefit from the card twice, because they would be even better. So it does say that you do have to scrap this after battle. Then if you flipped at least 1 black battle icon, you get to do 1 damage to the attacker. So it is really nice. Make sure you always do read the last of that. I have seen lots of people who do miss that second trigger. That 1 point of damage can actually be extremely relevant, especially in my scenario. My opponent's always living at 1. I have won games with that ability proccing, and my opponent is going to do enough damage to me, but since damage is calculated after the fact, this has won me several games by getting just that 1 point of damage in. The next part about the card that is honestly absolutely amazing and better than the rest of anything else is that it comes with 1 attack and 3 armor. So in this mode, you're looking at 6 armor. While you're in this mode, you're looking at 7 armor, and then while you're in either, I think, oh, it's in this mode. In this mode, you're looking at 5 armor, which is quite a bit. I talked about it a little bit in the beginning about now we really get to tank a lot of damage. A lot of times with tanks, you really kind of want to force yourself a little more into blue just because some of the lower health, or because you really want to maximize from the tough or superior plating. But with this deck, your opponent has to hit you for a lot of damage for you to even take a few points of damage. Because when you are looking at 7 on defense, and I do believe we have 9 blues in the deck, even flipping 1 or 2 of those blues can sometimes result in taking no damage. One thing that's really nice to do with this deck is you throw out Demolisher early sometimes for an early attack, try to hit your opponent, a specific character, get in for 4 or 5 Pierce, and then your opponent goes to attack back, but they don't do any damage, or they have to expend like a grenade launcher just to try to get in for a few points of damage, which is really, really nice stuff. So that's obviously going to be a 3 of in the deck. It is definitely one of the best cards. Next one coming in here is going to be the RR Disruptor Blade. Now, I've been looking for a space to be able to play this card for quite a while, just because I think it is a really powerful weapon. First off, it is a black pit battle icon, which again, we are going to be pushing some blacks in this deck. It is really relevant to be getting in some of that Pierce. And then also we want to be trying to, get that composite armor plus 1 damage off on our opponent, so the black pips are definitely necessary. It is a weapon. It says when the upgraded character attacks and you don't flip a black pip, you have to scrap this card after battle. Now, in most situations, we're going to be flipping a black pip, especially when you have Demolisher flipping like 13 cards or whatever it is. You're going to be flipping a black. We do have ways to get bold in the deck as well, so I've rarely ever missed the ability, so this usually ends up just always being +3 on a character. The main benefit to this card, not to mention just getting the +3, is that if you can have this stick on your Lord Megatron when your opponent goes to shuffle their deck, this is a base of 7 damage that they have to do to one of their characters after a reshuffle. And that is a lot of damage, especially in most situations when your opponent is shuffling with their last character and you're kind of 1v1ing Megatron, then they have to put that 7 damage onto one of their characters. That's also even sometimes enough for your opponent to be attacking into Megatron and just have to KO their own attacker, which then negates their attack. So it is really, really cool, all the different things that we can do with this ability. So we want to make sure that we have the most amount of damage, or most amount of damage, so when our Megatron does proc, our opponent has to really put themselves in a bad spot. Next card coming in here is going to be Grenade Launcher. You can't really build an aggressive deck without having one of the best weapons, so a Grenade Launcher is going to be a 3 of in the list. It is an orange battle icon, it is an upgraded weapon, and it says after the upgraded character attacks, you do scrap this card, and it does give you that +4 attack, which is really nice. Again, I have been playing this sometimes onto Megatron when I know that my opponent's going to have to shuffle and say Megatron's not attacking, because if you do attack, you lose this. But if I'm setting up Megatron to attack next, it's really nice to just put on Megatron, your opponent has to shuffle, take 8, and then you still get to smash into them with flipping Lord Meg on the next turn, making them mill 3 and then getting in for 10 base is really, really powerful stuff. Next 3 of coming in here is going to be Sturdy Javelin. Now, Sturdy Javelin is a really good card coming in with Wave 4. You're going to see this card a lot across a lot of different decks because it has so much utility just built into the deck. First off, it is a white battle icon, which is really nice, allowing us to flip 2 more when it comes to that attacking. And then it is an upgrade weapon, and it says while this is on a melee character, that melee character will get +2 damage, and then when it is on a ranged character and it attacks, you get to scrap this card and do 2 direct damage to an enemy. So it is really good. This is our only character that does have a melee mode, but sometimes with that base of 0, it's really nice to be able to put on him to make sure that we're just on those big swings that we're trying to get out there, that we're at least getting in for 2. And then on the another turn we can flip even with Demolisher, and then we can choose to attack and scrap it. But most of the time I'm putting this onto Impactor or Megatron, and it's really nice because the other thing about Sturdy Javelin, with the 2 direct damage, you do not have to scrap it and do it onto the defender. You can do it to any character that you want. So you're able to attack here, but then you can throw the Javelin at something over here, maybe finish it off or set it up for your next swing, or if there's a really big character that's got tons of health, like your opponent's main character, and you want just to start whittling him down a little bit early, then Sturdy Javelin is just always going to be a good card. And then plus, again, it's a white pip, so you are going to be seeing it kind of all over the place. I think it is a phenomenal, phenomenal card. Next 2 coming in here are going to be Increased Durability. Now, Increased Durability is a new card coming in with Wave 4. It is a solo black pip, which is really nice. And then it says the upgraded character has +4 health and is a armor. So it's really nice just being a black pip, really helping us push that pierce. Again, really trying to help us with that composite armor. But the +4 health is actually really nice. There is a way where we can end up getting +8 onto our Megatron, who's already sitting at 17. So that does put him up to a massive 25 health. So you can even get 2 reshuffles out of your opponent, even sometimes 3 reshuffles out of your opponent when your character is running that much health, because it just takes so much to get through the character, which is really, really awesome stuff. Now, it is an armor, so it does go in that armor slot, so obviously you can't have composite armor at the same time. So this does come into some plays in different situations. It's also really nice to have onto your Demolisher, because that does put our Demolisher up to 11 health. So it is really good, especially if our opponent is struggling to even get 7 health onto, or 7 damage onto Demolisher. Trying to tell them that they have to put 11 onto Demolisher makes them expend even more resources, which is really good because, again, it keeps all the focus off our Lord Megatron, and we get in a longer game with that. Next 2 coming in here are going to be Matrix of Leadership. Now, this is the really curveball, off-the-wall card that I absolutely love in this deck. First off, it is an orange and a blue battle icon. So we're not sacrificing on the orange when it comes to the attack. And then now we can sometimes get that surprise 1 extra blue on defense, which is really, really good. It is an upgrade utility, so it does not mess around with our armor slot. And then it does say put onto Autobots only. And it does say each of your other characters get +1.5 Pierce 1. Now, that really big turn where I talked about getting all that damage with Demolisher, this was an upgrade I played on the previous turn, and it was on Impactor. Now, Impactor is a leader, so you do get access to giving your other team +1 and Pierce 1, which is really nice because, again, we have the black pips in here to be getting that Pierce damage in, so we are going to be pushing lots of Pierce, and it's also built into the main board without having to really sacrifice anything for it. So whether we're playing up against an orange list or a blue list, we're always going to be in a really good spot main board, and then obviously I'm going to show you guys my sideboard where we really get to amp up based on what we are going up against. Next card coming in here is going to be Energy Pack. Now, Energy Pack is a one of in most of my decks that do feature a main character, a character that does have a lot of health, or a character that I really want to make sure that they do get to survive. And it is a utility, so again, doesn't mess around with that armor slot, which is really nice. And it does say put on characters that have 11 or more stars. Our Lord Megatron is 12. And then it does say the upgraded character has 4 health. So this is how I was talking about having 8 additional health onto our Megatron to get him to 25, is that you do play these 2 cards. Now, having just those 2 on there, again, our Lord Meg, having 25 health is kind of crazy, and it is a lot that your opponent does have to throw into the character. Now, also in some situations, if our opponent is also running massive amounts of damage, we are running very little blue, so it is also possible for maybe your Megatron to only take 2 hits without having these on. I always try to get Energy Pack on there, especially like mid to late game, and I don't really have a good upgrade to play on one of my other characters. It's probably not something that you want to focus on trying to play early game, because you're essentially wasting playing, one of your other better upgrades. And then also if your opponent has a removal for it, it's only a one of in the deck, and then you just lose it early, and it's really hard to get back to and hope you get back to it. So I usually just try to hang on to this for quite a while towards that mid to late game when I know that I want to just seal the deal. I do hold on to that card. Now we have quite a bit of one-ofs coming in here the rest of the way. We do have one force field. It is a white battle icon. It does allow us to flip that 2 additional cards, which is really nice. It is an armor. It says if the upgraded character would take 5 or more attack damage, instead I scrap this card and only take 4 damage. So this is really just to make sure that on those turns that our opponent is going to be finishing one of our characters, that we can just play that force field onto that character and really try to protect the character. Now the one of and these 2 ofs here, I'll be showing you guys we do have a card in the action section that does allow us to fish these back from our scrap pile. So even having a one of is still really nice with these guys because it is easy to go get. Next one of armor coming in here is going to be a Bashing Shield. Now, Bashing Shield does give us +1 armor, which is sometimes relevant for Demolisher because then his armor goes to 5, making it tougher for our opponent to hit him, and then also allowing us to flip 1 more additional card when it does come to attacking. It is an orange and a green pip, so the orange obviously helping us out. Green allows us to get that back at the end of combats, and then it does say when you put this on a character, you get to scrap an enemy armor. Now, this is to make sure that our opponent doesn't have anything like a point defense system as an armor or have their own force fields. This just allows us to get that off. I have also used it for some increased durabilities I've seen kind of running around as one-off cards to be able to get that. Sometimes just playing a Bashing Shield and then KOing a character because they go below or go over their amount of health because you take off an increased durability feels really good. I'm sure it feels bad for an opponent, but it is one thing to make sure that you do notice with that card. So it is really nice just to go back and get that as a one-of. Next one upcoming, I usually run one of these in almost every deck that I do run just because I think that they are really powerful, really good one-ofs. They do have that green pip as well, so it's always easy to fish. You don't have to worry about having to get to it. This is going to do the exact same thing as the Bashing Shield, just on the weapon version. It is an orange and a green. It is a weapon versus an armor. Gives us +1 versus +1 defense. It says when you put this on a character, you get to scrap an enemy weapon. And then our last one coming in here is going to be Soldier's Blaster. Now, this is a new card coming in with Wave 4. It is a green pip card, which is really nice. I do run it as a one-of because sometimes if you go up against another Decepticon, if you're an Autobot and you go up against another Autobot, it's only a +1 weapon, and in that situation it's really bad. But there's still, though, sometimes when you go up against, because I am running both Autobot and Decepticon on the list, I feel like I can run one-of because I can kind of have different targets that I can go for based on what my opponent is running. And then if I do need to sideboard it out or just let it even go during combat because it doesn't benefit me, it's only a one-of, so it doesn't hurt me too bad. However, it does give you that natural +1 that we talked about. It is an upgrade weapon, and then if you are going against someone of a different faction, you get an additional +2, so the weapon does become a +3. So it's really nice to put onto, let's say Demolisher if you're going into an Autobot, or if you want to put it on Impactor and go into Decepticon. It does become a pretty good weapon. I still always try to tend to my Disruptor Blade or my Grenade Launchers first, but again, just in case if you are going up against another faction, it also does include the new Mercenaries from Wave 4, and if you are obviously anything other than a Mercenary, you're going to get that benefit. I would imagine there's going to be Mercenaries running around just because they are a new faction. People are going to be playing with them just because they're fun, they're new, and then there are some really good ones amongst them. So this may come in handy, and again, just as that one-of, if we don't like it, we just get it out during game 2 into our sideboard, or we just let it go through our flips. Alright, our first action coming in here is going to be Rollout. Now, Rollout is a really good card in the deck just because we really want to be doing lots of flipping, but we don't want to be using our natural flips to do it. It's kind of hard to explain, but we really want to make sure that we're getting free flips. Is just honestly the best way to put it, and this allows us to do it. Rollout is first an orange and a blue battle icon, so it does help us out on defense, and also still doesn't hurt us when it comes to offense, which is really, really good. We want to make sure we are maximizing on both senses, and then again, sometimes flipping that one blue on defense is really just enough for your characters to survive or even take no damage. Notice they flip each of your characters from bot mode to alt mode. So I'm going to be talking about the sequencing kind of at the end of the game or whatever else, but in some situations, or I'm sorry, in most situations, you're going to be probably looking at something like this when you do come to wanting around to play the rollout. One thing you can always do is flip your Lord Megatron to this mode, play the rollout, and then you do get to flip all of the characters. And because they all count as triggered abilities, you do get to choose in which order they do get to proc. Now, I will tell you that in this situation, there isn't a benefit going one way or the other. However, I would start with Demolisher, who now lets you draw 2 additional cards. You then make your opponent mill for however much. If you do have an armor, you don't have an armor, at least base 3. And then Impactor gets to give everyone that bold 1, which is really nice stuff. Like I said, in some situations, I'm always kind of throwing Impactor first. So this is really kind of where we're at. And then depending on, you don't really want to roll out and to have to essentially waste a flip. So you could easily roll out here. You get to go flip here. You get to give your team bold 1. You get to draw those 2 cards. You get to flip Demolisher for your normal turn. And then you get to attack in with him. It's really bad if you're in this mode. And let's say you flip Megatron just to roll out, and then you have to try to attack in this mode with Demolisher. It's pretty bad. You don't really want to ever find yourself in that situation. You want to really make sure that you are attacking in this mode with Demolisher. If you are going to find yourself in that kind of a situation, then I would tell you to try to attack with Impactor in this mode, just because he doesn't really benefit a whole lot from the 3 versus the 4 with the bold 1 on this side. And then if you are obviously using the rollout, your team's getting the bold, so you're still getting the bold on this side with Impactor. But it is really nice stuff when you are even, let's just say, late game kind of in this situation, or even in this situation, for you to have that composite armor. You play rollout, you get to mill your opponent for 6. And then if they are low on their deck, you get to flip back to this mode just to make sure that when they do shuffle, you're in the correct mode. It's really, really important to make sure that you are in this mode when your opponent shuffles, because if your opponent shuffles and you are not, you are losing a bunch of damage. Sometimes you can still come out and win the game, don't get me wrong, but you always want to be in this mode. And even if you are slightly worried, let's say your opponent has 10 cards left in their deck, and you're too afraid to flip and get back to this mode in time, then just stay in this mode. Believe me, you will benefit from it far more than trying to push the extra 2 damage here, and then you end up missing, you know, like let's say that's up to 8 damage that you have on this mode. So it's really, really bad because that is direct damage. You always want this mode. Next card coming in here from Wave 4 as well is going to be Fight for Position. Now, this card is a lot like another card that you guys did used to see, and that is it is an orange and a black battle icon card, and says one of your characters gets bold 2 until end of turn. Now, Supercharge is the other card that you could put in this slot. Supercharge does give you access to 1 more additional bold. However, you do lose the black pip. I do really want the black pip in this scenario. I don't think losing the bold 1 makes a huge difference, whereas making sure I have that black pip, that it does make a big difference. I want it for the composite armors. I want it for the Pierce. Next card coming in here as a 3 of is going to be Peace Through Tyranny. Now, this card is always usually a mainstay in most aggressive decks. I've actually cut, if you guys noticed in the armor section, the improvised shields. I almost cut this card, but it still has its benefits in the deck. First off, it is a double orange battle icon, which is really nice. We just get to push that damage, which is the main reason why it's in here. But the other reason is that this card is actually playable in this list. It says you may KO one of your characters that has 6 or more stars. If you do, take an extra turn. Now, first off, Demolisher comes in here at 6 stars, and Impactor comes in here at 7 stars. So I do have 2 targets to be able to make sure I do take an extra turn. Now, the only times that I find myself taking an extra turn is when I need to get my opponent to shuffle and also hit them with a big Megatron attack. One thing that I do with the list is that I try to set that up if possible. Impactor's usually your your least desired character amongst your team. He will take early damage. He will go down kind of quick, so sometimes it is really nice to be able to use that piece onto him to be able to go for that extra turn. Let's say my opponent has 10 cards. Even if I'm not getting an attack, if my opponent has to shuffle, it is going to be beneficial for us to take that extra turn. So what I'll usually do is play Piece Through Tyranny, and then I can flip Megatron, make my opponent mill 3, 6 cards. I can then, wait a turn. I can attack. They have to flip 2 cards, and then I go to take my additional turn. I don't get to straighten in those situations, but I can flip Megatron back to his bot mode. So now when my opponent goes to draw for the turn, and when they attack, they have to shuffle. So yes, we don't get to get an attack in with the Piece Through Tyranny, but if it does make our opponent have to shuffle and take potentially, I guess you wouldn't be able to do the grenade launcher in that scenario, but you could do the Disruptor Blade, 7 damage onto their last character, it's like you attacked anyway and didn't have to worry about armor or defensive flips. You still get the 7 damage, which is really, really nice and is actually really important in some situations. So that is one thing to know about that card. I will tell you it's really easy to not recognize that card for that turn just because you're like, well, I don't get another attack, I'm not going to go for it. If your opponent has to shuffle, the card can be relevant enough. Just make sure that if you are KOing your Impactor, that is also good, because you don't want to just sacrifice a character for your opponent to have to reshuffle and then put like 7 damage on one of their Battle Masters, and then now they have a huge weapon against you. That's really, really bad. So make sure that you are doing it in the right scenarios. It will take a little bit of time for you to understand that specific play, but it is a really good play, and it's definitely something that your opponent won't see coming. Now the next 3 coming in here, and I believe the last blue card that we have coming in is going to be Hunker Down. I can't play a tank deck and not play Hunker Downs. First off, it is a blue battle icon, again, helping us out on that defense. However, this one does not have an orange pip, so this one is just bad to flip on attack. However, it's the only one in the entire deck that I do think is a bad card to flip on attack, which is really nice because there's only 3 of them, so the chances of it are pretty low. But it does say flip each of your characters from bot mode to tank mode. Then for each of your tanks that isn't upgraded with an armor, you get to put an armor onto it from your scrap pile. So here is where a lot of really fun interactions with some of those armors do get to come into play with our characters, including the composite armor trick that I did talk about kind of sneaking in. Now we do have access to Bashing Shield. We can get back those force fields. We can get those increased durabilities, through that. But we do get the composite armor, which is really, really nice. So we do kind of want to see this card flip. Now the way the Hunker Down works, because it is a triggered ability, I'm going to kind of just show it off here for just a second. Let me set her up. All right. Now this does work pretty interestingly. A lot of people don't know the full interaction with the card. So you'll play Hunker Down. Let's say we have all 3 of our characters. We flip them all first to tank mode. Now the question would be, do you finish these characters' abilities first since you just flipped them, or do you finish the card's ability? The answer is you finish the card's ability. And now this is how we get to get that cheeky stuff in with Lord Meg. Once you do this, you go through your scrap pile, you pick out all your armors. Let's say these are our armor choices, and this is what we decide to do. We're going to put a force field on here because we want our Demolisher to live. We're going to put the increased durability here to make him live longer. And then we're going to put the composite armor onto Lord Megatron. Now the card has finished resolving. Its abilities are gone. Now you go to your character's abilities, and again, you get to choose, just like with Rollout, how you want to resolve these characters' abilities. I would do Demolisher, draw my 2 cards. I would do Impactor, everyone gets bold, and then Lord Megatron ability does get to go, and because you now have 6 armor, your opponent has to mill 6. So it's really, really nice to be able to get this card back. Plus, not to mention, it does get scrapped when you have to defend with it. So Hunker Down is another way to get that card back from the scrap pile, and you just increasing your armor and your opponent, even after they go into it. Maybe they took 1 damage, got in for 1 damage because of the Black Pip ability, and then you play Hunker Down and get it back, and your opponent's back into the same situation. And it's really bad for your opponent and really, really awesome for us. The next card coming in as a 2 of is going to be Calculated Strike. Now, Calculated Strike is a good card. I've been kind of back and forth on it. Sometimes it's really awesome. I absolutely love the card, and then sometimes it's just a +2. But even in the scenarios where it's just a +2, it's still good enough. It is, first off, a black pip, so it does get to help us out with all those previous things. And then it does give one of our characters +2 attack and Pierce 2. So if we want to make sure that we have to get in for, let's say, Pierce 5 on a character because they're on really heavy blue, this is a really easy way for us to make sure that we're almost guaranteeing we're going to get in there, because with our normal flips, we're going to be probably getting in for that many black pips just in general. So it's really nice to be able to do that. It does also help out with Demolisher, making sure that we get at least 2 starting attack, and then once we start to flip all those cards, we're definitely getting in for a bunch. I've gotten up to, I think, 11 Pierce with Demolisher going up against a blue deck, and it's because of a sideboard card I'll bring in and show you guys because it's absolutely amazing. But yeah, it was like 11 attack, 11 Pierce, and just completely one-shotted the Battlefield Legend. So it was absolutely amazing, I guess with whatever damage was left on him. But a really good card as a 2-of. The next 2-of coming in here is going to be Rock Toss. Now, Rock Toss is a card that did come in with Wave 3, obviously, as well, with the black pips. I originally didn't like the card. It took me quite a while to get into the card. I'm still not fully into the card. I still think that like Zap and some of the other choices can still be better. The one difference here is that it does have the black pip, which we were trying to push. So again, we're not sacrificing the orange pip, and we do get to pick up the black pip, which is really nice. The one thing to make sure you notice about the card is that it does say do 1 damage to a tapped enemy. So you cannot just hit any enemy. You have to make sure that that enemy is tapped. So there are those some situations where a character's untapped, only has 1 health, or I want to make sure I get in for that 1 extra point of damage before I attack into it, and you actually cannot do it. You do have to wait for that card to attack you. The one time that this card becomes really bad is when you have to attack first, and it's 1v1 against your opponent. You have to attack, and then they have to attack, and then you straighten. So literally, Rock Toss is never going to be used the rest of the game. So that's why it's also as a 2-of. I don't think it's necessary to have as a 3-of, and I don't think it's good enough to go as a 1-of. So I do have it in it as a 2-of in the list just for that extra damage, and then again, still for that black pip. And then we have a couple of 1-ofs coming in here. First one is going to be Reprocess, coming in with Wave 4 new card. Green battle icon allows us to pick it up after battles. And then it does say scrap and upgrade from any character and then repair 2 damage from it. It is very relevant to know that. It is off of any character, which can also include your own, and repair 2 damage from that character. Now, it's also really awesome to be able to hit your opponent's character that happens to have, let's say, an Ion Blaster on it, and they have no damage early game, because then they just don't heal. So it just becomes a ramming speed that you can go fish, which is really, really awesome. And then even in those situations where you have, let's say, a grenade launcher in your hand, and you have a Disruptor Blade out, and you're like, well, man, my Lord Megatron's going to go down next swing. I need 2 more health here. Oh, boom, let me reprocess my own upgrade and then play another upgrade for the turn, and then you just get to heal too, and you're still in the same boat, which is really, really nice. Card is a 1-of just because it is a green pip, and then it has both good situations for attack and defense, kind of removing your opponent's stuff and your own stuff. Next one coming in here is going to be Treasure Hunt. This is a 1-of in the list, obviously, and it does say scrap the top 4 cards of your deck, put all upgrades this way into your hand. Now, we do have lots of ways of getting upgrades out. We have so many that we're just going to be naturally drawing. We're drawing off of Demolisher, so I really didn't want to go too heavy into it to where we had just too many in our hand. We really didn't want to make sure that we're not playing any. We really want to make sure we're playing an action and an upgrade each turn if we can. I don't want to be sitting there with a hand of 4 upgrades and we have to kind of try to pick through it. It's really bad to do that, so I didn't want to go too crazy with the treasure hunts. And then also we do have Hunger Downs to get some stuff back. So again, I just wanted this to be able to make sure that on the turn that I am going into an attack or my opponent is about to shuffle their deck, that I do have a weapon for Lord Megatron. Or sometimes, yeah, maybe you have 2 composite armors at like the middle to bottom of the deck, you just haven't gotten to them yet. It's nice to just treasure hunt and try to get them back. And then the last card coming in is going to be a Ramming Speed. It's just a really good card. It's an orange battle icon, so it does help us out on that attack. And then just says scrap an enemy upgrade. It's just the 1-of in case there's something that our opponent has that's really pesky as far as armor that's bugging us, or maybe it is that force field that they have, or if we have a weapon that we're really afraid that they're about to, attack back into Lord Megatron with, or even if it's something like a Soldier's Blaster that your opponent is just going to get enough damage into, let's say you're a Demolisher and they don't want that character to go down, then you just play the Ramming Speed just to make sure that any of those things are up out of your way. Alrighty, now getting into the sideboard, first card coming in is going to be Dampening Field. First off, it's a white battle icon allowing us to flip 2 more on attack, which is really nice. And then it does say reveal when one of your characters defends. Your opponent cannot flip more than 4 battle cards during this battle. So this is to really shut off heavy bold decks, let's say a Wheeljack or a Kickback or some, a Lionizer possibly, or someone that has a Lionizer upgrade. This is just designed to make sure that your opponent isn't getting in for those big swings. It just does make sure that we are protecting ourselves a little bit. I also love the art because it's just the fire cons all getting all, netted up and stuff, but it is a really good card, again, just for those situations. You do have to make sure that you do play it on the correct turn so that your opponent just doesn't swing in with something else, flips 2 normal, and then even if they flip one of those as a white, they're only flipping 4 anyway, so you have to make sure that you are playing it on a turn that your opponent is going for a huge hit. It's always really fun when your opponent's like, oh, power punch kickback, supercharged kickback swing, and then you're just like, okay, dampening field, you only get to like deal 2 to 4 damage to me. So pretty awesome stuff. Now the mainstay awesome card that I absolutely love the most up against a blue list is going to be Crushing Treads. I've been wanting to play this card since forever, and finally I have an orange tank deck, and it still has massive amounts of armor, so we're getting in for massive amounts of pierce. So, first off, cards in orange battle icon, I should probably explain it first. It says put on tanks only. It is a utility, which is very relevant. The upgraded character has pierce equal to its armor. So, we were kind of talking about it a little bit earlier. If this is your Demolisher, you are sitting here with 1 attack, pierce 7. Because you have 4 armor here, 3 here. A built-in pierce 7 is absolutely insane. So when we go to attack, everything that we flip, which by the way is going to be 7 cards for the armor, 2 for our normal, so now we're in for 9. You flip a white, we're in for 11. With just doing this, we're flipping 11 cards of pierce 7. Believe me, we're getting in for at least pierce 7, which is really, really strong against those blue decks that are really heavy on those defensive flips, and they're trying to, armor up, superior plating tricks, whatever the case is, you're going to be KOing characters. Now, this is also base 7 pierce just because of Crushing Treads. You guys saw that we had 15 blacks in the deck, so we're also going to be pushing more black pips on top of that, which is where I talked about getting in for like 11 pierce in one swing. Was I was also able to flip 4 black pips on top of my normal stuff. So we got to, I think it was like 12 attack, pierce 11. It was absolutely insane, and it was all just because of 1 card. I do believe for the turn I played a Hunker Down, was able to get the composite armor, flipped Demolisher for the turn, played Crushing Treads for the turn, then flipped Demolisher, and was able to get that massive swing on a 6-star character by only playing 1 action and 1 upgrade. So it's really, really awesome. And then just imagine if I had this out already, played the Hunker Down, and then did like the fight for position. Like, the amount of cards that you can flip and get in with Demolisher is absolutely crazy. And this Crushing Treads is just an awesome, awesome card. I've been considering on going up to 3 in the sideboard, but I'm really getting the job done with just the 2 of it, just because we do have other ways of seeing it, and we do have a treasure hunt. So we do usually see it at 2 of. If you are struggling with a lot of blue in your area and you want to run this, then I would even consider running 3 of these main board if that is the case in your area. The next card coming in here is a 2 of, is going to be 2-prong attack. Now this is more designed for another aggro mirror match if you're going up against something a little more aggressive, or maybe you're going up against even something that's got a lot of hand control and your opponent is kind of sitting at that 2 to 3 card range. This is really nice. It is an orange battle icon, and then it says choose one of your characters. If it's a tank, which it is, your opponent chooses 2 of their cards from their hand and scraps them. There is a plane side as well. We obviously don't have any planes, so we're not going to mess around with that. But it is really nice just if you want to just try to control your opponent's hand a little bit. I don't really use it like in Shockwave mirror matches because they usually have way more than 2 cards, and then you just play this and they just scrap like 2 handheld blasters, and all you're doing is just getting those double blues back into their deck. So you're not really benefiting yourself. But if you are going up against another aggressive deck and you guys are both kind of sitting at that 2 to 3 cards back and forth, this is really nice to be able to strip them of those things to help you get that card advantage, and then hopefully pull the game out, because maybe they're even possibly top decking off of this, and they're also not getting their green pip. So that's usually the matches that I usually bring those in, and they're really good for them. Next one coming in here again for an aggressive match is going to be Heat of Battle. Now this can sometimes also be relevant if you're going up against a blue deck. Now Heat of Battle is a white battle icon allowing us to flip 2 more on attack, and then it does say all characters get bold 3 and all characters get tough 3. So even if your opponent is on heavy blue, they are going to get access to tough 3. This card is in here for 2 reasons. 1, we're still getting in for good pierce damage. You can even bring in both of these against heavy blue, and even if they have tough 3, you're still hitting them for pierce 7, so who really cares what they're flipping on defense? If you are getting to those big numbers of pierce again, they can flip all the blue they want. It's not going to really matter. The other cool part, it gives us bold 3, so it allows us to really make sure that we're pushing those black pips, those orange pips, all that good stuff, seeing some more of those green pip cards from us. But it also makes our opponent flip 3 more cards on defense, which could help us shuffle, make them shuffle, so our Lord Megatron can proc early. There have been times where I've looked at my opponent's stuff, he's had like 9 left, I'll use a flip effect onto Megatron, get him to the regular mode, play something like Heat of Battle, and then hope that they have to flip a white pip in there too, and they're getting their 2 for the normal, they're getting 3 here for the 5, and then they're getting 2 for the white, so they're flipping 7 cards on defense, and then they have to draw and just take all that damage on their draw step. If you can get Lord Megatron's ability to proc on your opponent's turn, you're in a really, really good spot because they're forced to do it on their own turn, sometimes KOing a character that they're going to attack with, or even just putting a bunch of damage onto their main character, so late game, you're just already set up for dealing damage to them. And then the last 2 coming in is going to be System Reboot. Again, a white battle icon card. This card is usually used to be in my main board for some of my aggressive decks, but it's starting to go to my sideboard. But it is a really good card because it does say each player scraps their hand and draws 4 cards. This is really nice for us to help refill our hand if we are getting low on stuff. If we're going up against a Shockwave and he's making us scrap all of our cards, then this is really nice because we put them back down to 4 cards. They also lose everything in their hand, which can be relevant. We get to draw 4 cards, refilling our hand. We can help dig for those weapons, dig for all that really good stuff. It's also really good for some of those other characters that are holding a bunch of cards in their hand, like some Cars decks are always usually sitting at quite a few cards. They want to make sure that they're trying to get their untaps. If they're ready to set up, next turn for like a Start Your Engines turn and a Turbo Boost turn, this is really nice to clear their hand out so they don't have access to those kind of cards. And then also, it makes our opponent go through 4 more cards in their deck, so our Lord Megatron can proc even faster. So this card is so built into so many different things, and it just goes to show how powerful Lord Megatron's ability is. You always have to keep it in mind on how many cards are left in the deck. If you happen to, let's say your opponent's at 15 cards in their deck, you have a composite armor, you can flip Megatron, hit him for 6 cards, you can play this, hit him for 4 more cards, now you know that you can attack, and then they're going to be at like 2 cards left in their deck. So like you can do quite a bit of stuff to really mill through your opponent's cards in their deck really, really fast. Plus, like I said, it also has other abilities. It's not in there just for that purpose. So it's why it's also in the sideboard. It's because whatever matchup you are going up against, you have access to all these different tools, which are really good, and they don't hurt our deck a lot. Some cards in sideboards, you don't really want to bring them in because sometimes they're beneficial in some situations, but they also kind of hurt you in situations, so you're like always on that gambling thing. All of these cards are a benefit to us. They don't ever really hurt us, and they always will keep us pushing in the same direction by pushing damage, making sure we're not taking that much damage, and making sure our opponent mills. Alright, so what we're going to talk about here is about sequencing. So I want to just make sure we go through kind of some of the sequences so you guys can better understand things. Now, if we're going up against someone who's very low base damage, the heavy blue, let's say they're relying on a little more of buff cards like Leap into Battle, some other things, we're not really too worried about their base. I don't mind throwing Demolisher first, just because he is going to be able to get in for hopefully a few points of pierce damage early game into our opponent, and then we get to go into the target that we're trying to do. So I'm going to shuffle the deck here a little bit so you guys can kind of just see the accurate stuff behind it, just to see what kind of pierce that we can put out even with a raw base attack with not getting in for a whole lot. So we're going to be cut. We're going to get in for 2 base attack. We're going to get in for 2 from our white pip and then 4 from our armor. So even just looking at this, we're getting in here for 1, 2, 3 pierce, and it's also 5 damage. So it's still pretty decent to be getting in on that. We're going to be able to hit that character for the Pierce 3. We did also reveal a nice little green card if we do want to pick that up. And we didn't really push out a whole lot. We didn't have to expend a lot. And even if our opponent happens to, let's say, have 3 base armor, if you're going to do against a Battlefield Legend or an Octone off the beginning, they have that 2 or 3 base armor. They flip a couple of blues. You probably weren't getting in for damage if you decide to throw an Impactor. And then you have to try to attack one of the littler characters. It can get kind of weird. So in those situations, we can get in there for Demolisher, get in a couple of points of pierce damage, really nice stuff, and then he's also set up now for later on for us to get that rollout, for us to get the hunker down, whatever the case is, he's in a good mode, plus he does have that 4 armor, so when our opponent attacks back, they don't get in for a whole lot of damage on him. Now, if we are going into someone that, let's say, is a little more aggressive, they're going to be pushing a little more damage, then what I would do is I would flip Impactor first, and I would throw Impactor. In most situations, I throw Impactor first, just because he is my more expendable character. I'm okay if he goes down. I'm also okay if Demolisher goes down, but I definitely want to make sure Demolisher's in the right scenario for when he does go down. I really want to make sure that I get at least 1 or 2 good attacks in with Demolisher, whereas Captain Impactor is definitely in there for some base damage, some base bold, but he's kind of more of that filler mid-range character. So we get in with Impactor, our opponent cracks back into him. I mean, even if we want to go through some of the motions here on attack and defense, we'll just shuffle up again. I want to make sure we don't get the same cards in there. We get in for Impactor, who gets in for the 2 and then the bold 1. So we're getting in here for 7, Pierce 1. Really nice. The Pierce 1, super irrelevant, but 7 off of a turn 1 attack is pretty good. At this point, I would go into one of our opponent's littler characters. I really wouldn't try to still hit their big character. Try to get some good damage on one of their smaller characters or one of their, support characters. Get in for that little bit. Our opponent gets to crack back. That 1 blue actually coming in here pretty nice. Getting that 2 there, and then we do get to draw our card or whatever else, and then next turn we can now flip our Demolisher, and we can play a weapon, we can play a composite armor, we can even try to go this turn with a decent hunker down. It's not bad play, it's not a great play. I would do that before, obviously you flip, hunker down here, you can go get a composite armor, get the bold 1, then you can flip and kind of get in there for massive amounts of attack. We'll most likely be probably finishing a character at that point, which is really, really good stuff. And then obviously our turn 3, we want to make sure we flip our Megatron if we have some really good cards to be able to flip him back to the alt mode and mill, or if our opponent is close on decking. If they are not, then I actually keep him here because he does have that 6 attack. And then if we didn't, let's say, have that hunker down or whatever else, this would be the turn in which I would just choose what I want to go with. We can flip Demolisher here and draw 1. However, we do have to keep in mind that we are losing 1 armor. So if we're worried about him being KO'd, I don't flip Demolisher. But we can easily flip Impactor at this point. And now we can give our Megatron bold. We can put a weapon on him. And we can get in for big, big amounts of damage. And like I said, even if we play a grenade launcher at that point, we're at 10 base, flipping at least 3 cards, which is really nice. We flip a white, we're in for 2 more. We could be getting in for 15 damage with Lord Meg with his attack, and then we're definitely finishing a character. We do get to keep the 3 armor there, which is nice, and then we get to reset and we can kind of go through the motions. At this point, I would know that I have to start getting Megatron into the right mode because our opponent is probably at least more than halfway through their deck. We do have 2 more attacks we have to get through, 2 more defenses that we have to get through, so there's still a bunch of cards to be flipped there. So I know that on this following turn, I need to start getting Megatron ready for the reshuffle. Now, the thing that can make Megatron a little weird when we were talking about it is when our opponent has to shuffle at weird times. So there can be this really weird thing where, here, I'll use my own Captain Impactor. Let's say our opponent has Impactor, and let's say they have a Demolisher as well. Now, let's say we are about to attack. We choose to attack into Impactor, and our opponent has to shuffle their deck. Let's say it's an instant. As soon as we declare our attacks, the way that it works, I declare my attacker, declare the defender, I tap, I choose to go into my tapped enemy, and then let's say I flip my 2s, which don't come into effect yet, but I flip all of my cards. Now my opponent would go to flip, they cause to shuffle, now they have to put 4 damage onto their character. These do not come into account until after the fact. But let's say that 4 damage is going to KO Impactor. What's my opponent going to do? They could choose to put it on Demolisher and let Impactor live, but he's going to be taking at least 6 damage. So what he could do is put the 4 damage and KO Impactor. If he does that, he now does not have to shuffle because this ability has KO'd the character at that point. So now my attack becomes null and void. Nothing happens. My cards go away. That's the end of it. And now my opponent gets to attack back into Lord Megatron. That's how some things can get really weird, especially if that character is like a battle master. Let's say I'm attacking into a fire drive because unfortunately that's where the game state is. He can choose to just put it all on the defender and then KO the defender. He's probably going to go down anyway because of the attack. So it essentially just mitigates Lord Megatron's ability. However, the really cool part is that your opponent has 2 characters. They go to attack into me. They have to shuffle in the same situation. Now they can choose, okay, put 4 on this character to have this character live, or they had to put 4 on this character to have the character get KO'd, and then now I don't even have to worry about defending, which is really, really awesome stuff. So I hope that this did do a really good breakdown for you guys, really kind of understanding all the ins and outs of the deck, talking about all the cards, and then even the sideboard. Lord Megatron is a fantastic character. I'm also going to be building a blue shell with him because I think he's also really good in a blue shell. However, I knew that I instantly wanted to go into an orange list with him and with Demolisher. The deck has been performing extremely, extremely well ever since I made a few of the changes. It did do really good on the stream. Like I said, I will put a link in the description box below if you guys do want to, hurry up and go watch a very, very close version and get to see some really awesome gameplay. I believe in that one I went up against the new Omega Supreme. You guys can watch that. I am going to be posting some gameplay of this for you guys to watch as well. So I really hope that you guys did enjoy this deck and a deck breakdown. Obviously, a like would be greatly appreciated. Make sure you guys are subscribed. That way you guys can get access to all of our videos as soon as they become available. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.